Welcome. You're diving into the deep dive, and today, well, we're tackling a really serious and, frankly, urgent topic.
We are.
We've got these sources here: A Comprehensive Strategy to Combat Rape, Betty Bachao 2024, and How to Prevent Violence Against Women. They're all from Ryan Baidya, Ph.D., MBA at the Takshila Foundation.
Indeed. And these documents, they lay out a pretty stark picture of the problem of rape in India.
Stark is one word for it.
Yeah, and then they propose a very specific, I'd say bold and comprehensive strategy to actually address it.
So our mission today is basically to unpack these sources.
Exactly. Understand the scale of the issue as they present it, and then really explore the detailed solution the author is putting forward.
Okay, let's get into it then. What we're really looking at here is a call for a fundamental rethink
A complete reevaluation of how things are being done now.
regarding what the author calls a crisis of pandemic proportion.
Pandemic level, yeah. That's strong language.
It is. So you'll want to pay close attention to the stats they use and the structural changes they propose, because this is where it gets really interesting.
Definitely.
So the sources, they start by painting this grim picture.
Right. India, second most populous country, grappling with this alarming issue.
And a central idea they stress is that if a society doesn't respect women properly,
It risks nurturing a culture of, violence and tragedy. That's the argument.
yeah, and the cornerstone of a successful society, according to these docs, is upholding the status, education, and dignity of women.
And what's really striking here is how they try to quantify it.
The sheer scale of it.
Exactly. Despite all the laws India has, crimes against women just keep happening.
Unabated.
Yeah. I mean, a quick Google search for rape in India, the sources mentioned this gives you something like 480,000 results. It's huge.
And the official numbers.
Well, the National Crime Records Bureau, the NCRB, reported over 371,000 crimes against women and girls in 2020 alone.
371,000, and that's just what's reported today.
Precisely. That's the key point the sources make. The actual number is likely, 10 times higher? Maybe even more.
Why so much higher?
Well, largely due to underreporting.
Okay.
Victims are afraid.
Afraid of retaliation, humiliation.
Both. And then there's the justice system, which is notoriously slow, grindingly slow, as the source puts it.
Okay, so what's the impact then beyond the crime itself?
The sources go into that. They detail how this violence inflicts these deep, lasting wounds.
Affecting victims personally, professionally.
Economically, too. And they specifically mention the Me Too movement.
Right, as bringing to light that enduring trauma survivors carry.
Exactly. The long-term psychological impact.
There's even a detail in here about the science of memory, isn't there?
Yes, drawing from Christine Blasey Ford's testimony in a different context, but applying the principle.
How trauma can actually physically change memory.
Right. It suggests trauma can kind of scorch memories into the hippocampus because of neurotransmitters like norepinephrine and epinephrine flooding the system.
Which underscores why these incidents cause such permanent damage. It's not just in the mind.
No, it's physiological.
Yeah.
And connecting this to the bigger picture, beyond individual suffering.
The national impact.
Yes. The sources argue rape exacts a heavy toll on the nation's economy.
How so?
Well, the ripple effect disrupts whole families, communities. It leads to significant economic losses.
They put a number on it?
Tens of crores of rupees in GDP over the past 2 decades. We're talking hundreds of millions, possibly billions of dollars lost.
That's staggering.
And they state, grimly, that a woman's dignity is violated every 18 minutes in India.
Every 18 minutes.
With over 28,000 rapes reported in 2020. And they list specific brutal cases you might recognize: Disha Salian, the Hyderabad vet, Nirpaya.
Singur, Baran, Hathras, these were huge news stories.
Exactly, shocking cases that highlight the severity.
Yeah.
But the sources stress thousands more go unreported.
Which leads to this incredibly stark conclusion they draw.
Yeah, rape not only violates a woman's dignity, but also reduces her to a level of a usable article of trade.
Usable article of trade. That's incredibly strong language.
It is. It's blunt. They say perpetrators with power or means essentially view people as commodities. Dehumanization.
So given all that, the obvious question is, what's been done? And why isn't it working?
Right. The sources tackle this directly. They argue that despite changes in the law.
Like after the Nirpaya case, 2012 Delhi gang rape.
Exactly. That prompted changes, right? Fast-track courts doubled prison terms to 20 years.
But the sources say the situation hasn't really improved much.
Little improvement, yeah. And they point out it took 5 whole years for the Supreme Court just to uphold the death sentences in the Nirpaya case itself.
Which explains why people might not report if justice takes that long or seems uncertain.
Precisely. And the sources offer a critique of the existing system.
What are the main problems identified?
Systemic inefficiencies, bureaucratic hurdles, political influence. The usual suspects, maybe, but applied here.
They have data on that.
They cite 2017 figures, for example. Indian courts disposed of only about 18,300 rape cases that year.
Okay. How many were left?
Over 127,800 pending.
Wow. So the backlog is huge.
Massive. And even the fast-track courts, designed to speed things up, face their own problems.
Like what?
Lack of forensic labs, not enough judges for the caseload, resource issues, basically.
So the system is overwhelmed.
That's the picture painted.
Yeah.
And the sources, they don't mince words here. They call it a war against your daughter, sister, and mother.
And they pose this direct question, what will you do, India?
Yeah. What you have been doing is not working, and the data proves it. It's a challenge.
And the answer they propose
Is simple, conceptually at least. Take a wartime measure.
a wartime measure. What does that actually mean in this context?
Well, the core of it, the absolute foundation of their proposed solution, is to declare rape a federal crime.
Federal, not state or local.
Exactly. Handled by the central government's apparatus, not local police or state courts initially.
What's the thinking behind that?
The idea is to ensure uniform treatment across the country.
Yeah.
Get rid of local biases, caste, religion, status, political influence.
And bring the full weight of the central government to bear.
Full source, full resources, centralized power to tackle a national crisis.
And they compare this crisis.
Explicitly, yeah. To a flood, a hurricane, even Ebola. Something requiring an emergency rapid action plan.
So like a disaster response.
Pretty much. They suggest central government intervention should happen within 24 hours of a rape being reported.
24 hours, that's incredibly fast.
It's ambitious. And that leads us to the main proposal, the really audacious part.
Which is?
The establishment of the Rape Prevention and Mitigation Army, the RPMA.
An army? What does that entail? Is it military?
Not a conventional army, no.
Yeah.
It's framed that way for urgency, I think. It's a specialized, multidisciplinary task force.
Okay, so who's in it?
Judges, civilians, social activists, academics, a mix of expertise.
And geographically diverse.
Yes, and crucially, members can't be from the victim's home state.
To prevent local bias, right?
Exactly. That's a recurring theme.
Yeah.
They proposed an initial team of about 207 members to cover 23 states and union territories.
So the key insight here is totally rethinking how resources and authority are deployed.
Yes, treating rape like a national security threat, not just a local crime issue. It's a paradigm shift.
And how would it be funded? Logistics.
They recommend wartime funds.
Yeah.
Like for natural disasters.
So serious money.
Yes. Budgeting for, get this, 2 military or disaster-style aircraft.
Aircraft, why?
Equipped with medical, forensic, high-tech comms gear. Plus 3 of 5 helicopters.
For transport.
Rapid transport of victims, suspects, investigators. Maybe to secret locations for treatment or detention. It's all about immediate, high-resource intervention.
And protection. Integrity.
Good point. Around 500 personnel, CRPF, Army commandos,
Yeah.
will be assigned just for protection.
Protecting who?
Judges, investigators, the victim's family, acting as a deterrent too, presumably.
And the RPMA team members themselves? Any rules for them?
Strict rules. Don't disclose your identity casually.
Right.
Don't mingle with families. Absolutely no accepting anything of value. Maintaining integrity is paramount.
And this RPMA bureau could handle multiple cases.
They suggest it could handle 23 incidents at once, and even take over pending cases from the old system.
Wow, that is incredibly specific, almost like deploying a rapid reaction force.
It is. Very detailed, very structured.
So, okay, this force is on the ground within 24 hours. What about the actual legal process? How do the trials work under this model?
Right, that leads to the next part, the proposed wartime trials.
Wartime trials sounds intense.
It reflects the urgency. First, trial courts would be set up close to the victim's home.
How close?
Within 25 kilometers. For accessibility, to minimize more trauma for the victim.
Makes sense. And the timing?
Trials would have to start super quick, no later than 7 days after the crime or apprehension, or within 15 days of the crime itself.
That's pushing for unprecedented speed. What about bail?
No bail for perpetrators during the investigation phase. They'd be detained and the locations kept private.
And the media?
Restricted access. No first-hand access to witnesses or key individuals during the trial.
Why is that?
To prevent confusion, undue influence, maybe even mistrial. prioritizing the integrity of the process over, say, media frenzy,
Okay. And how is the crime itself treated?
as a capital crime, meaning maximum severity. Potential for death penalty or life imprisonment is implied.
Oh, what about juveniles?
This is quite stark. Juveniles are defined as anyone who hasn't had their 12th birthday.
12th. That's a very low threshold for being tried potentially as an adult in such grave cases.
Extremely low, yes. It signals extreme seriousness.
And again, the trial team members?
Same principle as the RPMA investigators. Zero connection. No relationship to victim or perpetrator, not from the same state.
Impersonality, efficiency, integrity, that seems to be the mantra.
That's exactly the goal stated in the sources.
Okay, so you have this powerful, fast-acting RPMA and these rapid wartime trials. How do you ensure this whole system doesn't, go off the rails, prevent abuse of power?
Aye, yes. There's another layer built in for exactly that purpose, an oversight mechanism.
What?
It's called the Oversight RPMA, or OSRPMA team, and they describe it as spy style.
Spy style, meaning covert.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
This team would observe the RPMA proceedings covertly to ensure integrity.
So they'd be anonymous?
Anonymous both externally and even internally within the OSRPMA team itself, apparently.
Who would be on this oversight team?
People from civil society, government, the army, retired officials,
Yeah.
but with rigorous background checks, clean records, high-integrity individuals.
So the OSRPMA is essentially an internal watchdog for the RPMA, checking up on them.
Exactly right. But crucially, they wouldn't have authority over the RPMA.
No power to direct them?
None. Their only job is to observe and report.
Report what? And to whom?
Any findings of anomalies, corruption, wrongdoing,
Yeah.
anything compromising integrity. And they report directly to the Home Minister's office.
High-level accountability, then.
Very high. And those reports, they'd eventually be public,
How?
available through the Right to Information Act, 6 months after submission, though the Home Minister could release them sooner.
So there's a transparency mechanism built in, even for the secret oversight body.
Yes, a robust accountability loop seems to be the intention.
Okay, so after laying out this whole intricate, almost military-grade system, how do the sources wrap things up?
They conclude with a really powerful message, actually, connecting it back to fundamental values.
What's the core message?
It's deeply rooted in cultural sentiment. It says, India has been a land where women have been revered and worshipped as goddesses.
Harking back to tradition.
Yes, and emphasizing that the society that respects women is a heaven, and where women are denigrated, even the noble actions go waste.
So it's a call to action based on core principles.
Exactly. A call to cut through the bureaucratic inertia, the delays, the problems we discussed earlier, and reclaim that foundational principle of respect for women.
And there's a sense of hope, too, right? An audacious hope.
There is. That if this model could actually work in India,
Then India could lead the world by example.
yeah, show a way forward in combating this global issue.
Yeah.
Because it's certainly not just India's problem.
Which really does make you think.
It does. What if other countries did adopt something like this wartime measure approach?
For what the sources call a socio-medical epidemic disaster.
Right. How might that fundamentally change things globally, moving beyond incremental steps?
Towards something truly decisive, a coordinated, rapid response.
It's a fascinating and very challenging thought.
So today we've taken a really deep dive into this urgent issue of violence against women, specifically focusing on the context of India through these sources by Ryan Baidya.
We've explored this comprehensive, maybe even radical strategy proposed.
Looking at the alarming stats, the devastating impact, personal and economic.
And this call for a fundamental shift, treating rape as a federal wartime measure.
Through this proposed rape prevention and mitigation army, the RPMA, and its very stringent oversight mechanism, the OSRPMA.
Yeah, it's a vision that really demands unprecedented efficiency, absolute integrity, and transparency in the whole judicial process.
Aiming to cut through all those existing challenges, underreporting, slow justice, systemic problems.
To bring about rapid, decisive action. That's the core idea.
The sources definitely present a very clear, if stark, picture of a problem demanding immediate, bold action to protect citizens' dignity and rights.
It certainly leaves us with a powerful thought to consider, doesn't it?
It does. If a society's success, its health, is truly founded on the respect, the education, the dignity of its women,
Then what kind of revolutionary shifts might be necessary?
yeah, what changes might be needed, maybe in your own context, wherever you are listening, to truly uphold those values?
And really ensure the safety and, well, the flourishing of every single individual.
A challenging question to end on.